Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
Good afternoon, Rebel fans, or good morning to some of you. I'm here today with Key and Bexty. You know me, Andrew. We're here live with you every single day at the noon hour Eastern time, Key, and I'm sorry that we're going to discriminate against you. Why don't you tell everybody all about the Super Chats, what we're doing here today, and where you are?
Well, the Super Chats, from what I understand, are not working. Typically, what we would do is we would...
No, they're working now.
Oh, they are. Back online. That's awesome. So we'll be able to hear from you by you use this cool feature that YouTube has. You type in a quick message that you want us to read out, and then we do, and then we talk about it for a long time. That usually takes up the majority of the time that we spend during this hour, because we want to talk about the stuff that you guys want to talk about. But there's also a long list of things that we are keen on chatting about, particularly something that was happening in rural Alberta that we weren't aware of. Just a few days ago, I ended up going to Red Deer to check out what was going on after we received a ton of tips that the People's Liberation Army was training their pilots at a closed-down Canadian Air Force base. I don't know if you saw the video, Andrew, but it was quite interesting to me to see that although it wasn't the PLA there was a ton of Chinese nationals there training how to fly our planes at a closed-down Canadian Air Force base. And from the emails that you sent me, Andrew, actually, it seems like there's more of those bases around Canada that the Chinese are actually using to train their next generation of aircraft pilots.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. I did see the video. It's really good, so props to you and Mocha, I assume, is the cameraman there, and the editor. So it's a really good video. We'll show a clip of it in a bit. But yeah, it appears as though there's hundreds upon hundreds of Chinese nationals training to fly planes in Canada. Maybe it's cheaper here. Maybe they have a deal with the government. I don't know. But it seems really weird that China would just send hundreds of young guys to learn how to fly commercial airliners in Canada. Surely they have planes to train with in China. So I don't know what the rationale is there. Now, we have been getting tips, as you mentioned, from people saying that there is government contract somewhere, that there's multiple bases. We won't say where yet because we don't want to let them know that we might be coming. Kean might be coming after you. But there appears to be multiple places in Canada where hundreds and hundreds of Chinese nationals are going to get pilot training. Now, obviously, we don't care if they're Chinese or what have you. It's the government we care about of China, who's a communist government, not a good one in terms of human rights, sending people over. And you know, Kian, if you're China and you are getting to send hundreds of people to fly, to take pilot school, if that's what you call it, in another country, you're sending probably people who are going to try to steal some secrets, who are going to try to do some other stuff. I mean, we are like a week removed from the Chinese spy with Eric Swalwell and a giant network of Chinese spies being exposed in the United States.
Yeah, you're right. I think that people are dramatically underestimating how much of a menace China is. Now, there's nothing against the people of China, generally speaking. I mean, you know, some of them may be spies. I think the majority of them aren't. But it only takes one, right? It only takes one to give a secret to China that impacts our national security or the safety of, you know, thousands and millions of Canadians. Justin Trudeau training the Chinese military on how to best kill us in the cold weather. Now we're training their pilots. They say to fly airlines, but really, what's the difference between flying a 747 full of passengers or a 747 full of soldiers? It just strikes me as surprising that this is going on and nobody was really aware of it outside of the people in the immediate vicinity of the community who just accepted it as normal. But I was talking to Ezra yesterday about this, and I thought to myself, you know, like, there was a time before World War I and World War II where it was acceptable to have good diplomatic relations with the Germans, and it was acceptable to have Germans come and learn how our military worked, and you know, that sort of thing. And then there was a time when that was suddenly unacceptable, and I think that was, you know, maybe before World War One, that was probably obvious to the people in Canada. And I think we're approaching that point with China. I'm not saying that we're going to have some sort of nuclear World War III, but there's a point that with their military projection in the South China Sea. I just think that it's surprising at this point that we're still allowing them to run all over us and use our facilities and use us to train them in a way that is just a threat, an obvious threat to our national security.
I mean, there are people who are complaining, saying, "Oh, what's the problem with having Chinese soldiers over here?" Well, do you want North Korea here? Do you want Russia here? There are some people who are, whether you want to believe in this one world fantasy, which I know a lot of people do, there are people who are enemies, unfortunately. And I think the closest you can get to having people who are allies, who you probably don't want here, is Saudi Arabia. Now, referring back to the ChinaFiles.com, if you haven't seen that, go watch those. They stopped the exercise from happening. Trudeau government wanted to continue. They complained, they cried as they would. But they still did have officers observing things and doing classes. Now, I saw one of the pictures that Ezra Levant retweeted from the Canadian Army in 2017, where they're posing with the Chinese officer and he's getting an award, or he's giving them an award, whichever it is. Those two guys in the photo with the Chinese officer, they were in charge of me when I was in the military. Believe it or not. So I am quite disgusted. And I know that at my regiment there, if you have a Chinese officer walking around or a Chinese soldier walking around, you give him any time alone. Let me just, without revealing too much, let me just say that it wouldn't be too hard or too difficult for a person to snap photos, to go around and see what's going on. Maybe, like, think of the stuff that James Bond would do, except much less security watching him. You could go take pictures, you could go plug in a USB stick. It really wouldn't be that hard. So and I wouldn't normally say this, but I'm disgusted at the fact that nobody had a problem with this. At least people higher up in our military did have a problem with it, but the fact that they had people in the Toronto Military School there and then in CFB Petawawa is, I would go as far to say, disgusting and shouldn't be allowed at all. So maybe we can go to the clip of you, unrelated, we hope, talking to these pilots in Alberta. They seemed like, Ian, that they haven't spoken to a person who wasn't their teacher in months. They were excited to tell you everything. Hey, let me just tell this random stranger everything that I'm doing here.
Pseudo-military tactics like flying planes. Hi.
Hi.
You want a feather? Yeah, go ahead. What are you guys all doing here?
Pilot training.
Like pilot training?
Yeah.
Are you guys? Where are you guys from?
China.
China. How long have you been here?
Almost around 500 days.
Yeah. 500 days. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Is it just for like civilian training, or are you with the?
No, for the airlines.
500 days. Holy man.
While we were interviewed with this school, they were telling us around 15 months or 18 months.
Yeah.
But right now, I've already been around 500 days.
500 days.
And we have a group of students that going back home. They spent 32 months. Yeah.
Wow. So it's
Incredible.
Is there any military training?
I don't think so. Not here.
No.
I think the nearest military training is in Cold Lake.
Yeah.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
inside.
Cool. Well, thanks so much, guys.
Okay.
Now, teaching Chinese nationals pseudo-military things like flying planes isn't like teaching Chinese nationals how to, I don't know, bake a cake or build houses. This kind of training directly impacts our national security. They're learning how we fly planes. They're learning how we fly our planes specifically, and they're doing it at a closed-down Canadian Forces base. Why is that? And why is Justin Trudeau okay with that? Justin Trudeau actually wants to explicitly train the Chinese military, not just civilians, in how to fight in cold weather. He wants to train them in how to kill Canadians best in the winter. That's something that Justin Trudeau has to answer for. But he also has to answer for what's going on here. It seems a little bit innocuous. It's been going on for months, maybe even years here. But given the fact that China has become more and more hostile over the past few months, over the past few years, it makes you wonder, Why are we continuing with this training? And were you even aware that this training was happening in the first place? Now here at Rebel News, we have a bit of a motto, tell the other side of the story, but we also have a second motto, follow the facts wherever they lead you. We came here to Red Deer, just south of Red Deer, to see if Canada was indeed training the People's Liberation Army in how to fly planes. Now that wasn't exactly the case. The People's Liberation Army doesn't seem to be here, at least no active duty members of the PLA. But there certainly are hundreds of Chinese nationals here in old Canadian Forces barracks learning how to fly our planes, living at an old Canadian Forces base. If that doesn't sound strange to you, I don't know what will. For Rebel News, south of Red Deer, at an old Canadian Forces base, I'm Cian Bexty.
Okay, and that's a great video. Suspicious things in that video. One, an old Air Force base. Why? Just why? Why is that the place you're holding them? Two, it's interesting that the one guy knows where the closest training facility is at Cold Lake, Alberta, which is a big Air Force base. And sure, he could have just looked that up, but it's like, if he can just look that up and know that, I mean, like, it's normal for somebody to know that stuff, but it's also weird at the same time, given the climate of all of this and the situation. And the last point is nice sweatpants on that guy. Very East Asian of him to have the skinny sweatpants.
Yeah, no, it's like this little enclave of China in the middle of nowhere, Alberta, just like it's south of Red Deer in this place called Springbrook, which was the former Canadian Forces Base, Penhold. So yeah, I mean, it is weird that they're all learning how to fly planes and are all sort of have this little community around this area that used to be super well known for its participation in NORAD's long-range radar systems and was training our pilots so many years ago. I'm sure China has a lot of interest in what's going on there, or what did go on there, and the fact that there are hundreds of Chinese nationals there learning. I think Albertans deserve to know that. And why wasn't that even mentioned in the CBC, even in passing? You know, I find it very surprising. Anyways,
I'd assume that the
next up.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I assume that their counter argument would be, oh, they were just trying to make money. A Chinese company offers you $100,000 to train your people, and you're like, okay, it's not my job to make sure they're up to no good, but it is the government's job to make sure that Chinese companies are often quite shady, is my point here. So you can't just expect it to be all hunky-dory. Now, one of the criticisms I also saw about the Chinese troops training in Canada was that they have winter there, they have more mountains than us probably, why would they need to come here? What some people do not understand is the training they have is most likely very poor. Not that they have poor equipment, because they have the money to spend it. I mean, their jets are going to be worse than America's jets. All that sort of stuff is going to be worse. But the training is something that they might not have got. And particularly winter survival training is something that Canada's been doing for, I don't know, probably like 60, 70 years at this point. And also things like formations, making leaps and bounds, stuff that people learned during the Cold War when they were training to fight Russia is stuff that Chinese military might not necessarily know. And when they're getting into these conflicts in mountain zones with India or whomever else, maybe Korea in the future, this is stuff that they're going to want to know. And it's no secret that China likes to steal military secrets. So let's get to some super chats before we go to the next thing. Alex for $10 says Keenan is a beast. I love when they misspell your name. With his on the ground grinding, please keep it up. Andrew, how many plates do you squat? So first of all, yes, Kean's one of the last real reporters in Canada. As we see, the other reporters would rather, especially the NDP supporting reporters, Kean, they'd rather just crowd around you and cry that you're there, try to kick you and Sheila out, and then just be like, hey, you guys, here's a simple question. So props to you, Kean. Of course, I have to give you props after I insult you. How much do I squat? I wrote this down before the pandemic, 315, but now I am this hideous beast you see before me. No laugh, Kean? Okay, I'll get you, don't worry. Jorgie, $5. Imagine during the Cold War if there were Soviet troops training in Petawawa. Exactly. That's how bad this is. And by the way, Andrew, how much can you bench? Why are we getting all these questions about my exercise today?
Are people really asking that?
Yeah, I'm not adding that on to the end of the of the question.
That would be something that you would do.
It is. That's fair. I don't remember. 205 probably. Again, this is pre-pandemic. I don't see the name on this one. Okay, no, that's the one I already read. Viking Insane, our government has sold out to the CCP. I guess we will just accept it because Canadians believe their government's their friend. See you in the gulag. Yes, I call them the Pierre Elliott Trudeau re-education centers is what they'll be sending us to. Little Jew Girl, Alberta, which is an interesting name for $7. Does anyone know about several hotels, motels being taken over by the government? I mean, Kian, you know something about that.
I do, and all I can say is stay tuned.
Oh, okay, because we've covered other stuff before, near Roxham Road where they had that hotel shut down. And again,
yes.
another person who's just willing to tell you way too much to a stranger and just ends up giving us a lot of information.
You know, I find that using, and it's something I'm going to do more of, I think, is using my dog as a method of like breaking the ice. Exactly. Because everybody trusts someone who's walking a dog. If you're walking a dog, you can't be up to no good.
We did get the rare shot of your dog sniffing the camera. And now I'm sporting this mug here, Justin, if we should quickly bring up the Rebel News store, because we've been having great promos going on. And the interior ministry of Rebel News has been having competitions of promo codes. And I've got this mug here, this Make Canada Great Again mug. My favorite thing is the hoodies. If we can go to hoodies on pay, well, there's one there. I like the Rebel ones.
Oh, I like that one.
The one that just says Rebel. I bought one of those. And then the toques as well. And you can use my code Andrew10 for 10% off. Or you can use, see those toques right there. Yeah, I really like those Rebel toques. And the model's got really nice hair.
Toques there. And I'm going to remind everyone to not use Andrew 10, as everyone was just talking about their favorite reporter. Make sure you use Kian 10. I think that's although it's both 10% off, I think that maybe your toque might arrive like 2 or 3 minutes earlier if you use Kian 10.
Well, this is just obvious fraud that you're promoting here. So YouTube should probably delete your profile and censor you. So that's where you put in the promo code right there. He's going to be nice and probably type in somebody else's code.
There we go. That's exactly what I was thinking.
I don't agree with that at all. I am told I'm in second place. I won't say who's in first because I don't want to encourage them. But if you guys can push me over the echelon of first place. And while we're on the promo stint here, Justin, let's go to viewerschoice.ca. Now, there's been election fraud everywhere, allegedly. Allegedly, there's only been some sort of fraud. We can't prove it. It's disputed. It's without evidence. But if you go to viewerschoiceawards.ca, you can vote for your favorite Rebel reporter. Now, the sales markers are a little bit more in favoritism, showing favorites. But I'm told that the vote here is very close. The lead has changed 4 times, I believe. Also, if you're concerned about the order, like I was, preferential treatment, it changes every time you reopen the page. So if you go to viewerschoiceawards.ca, you can vote for everyone but Ezra Levant because he's been gracious enough to let somebody else win because he'd obviously win. And everybody else you see there can be voted for. I mean, I was saying this last night. Let's just go through here. Avi Yemeni probably doesn't even exist. He's CGI. Kian, as you can see by his camera, is basically a cyborg. Sheila and Andrea have both personally endorsed me on Twitter. David Menzies, you can't understand his jokes or his references. They're from 1968. Raheel Raza, she's very nice. I won't say anything bad about her. Buy her book. And then there's me, and then Tamara, also Tammy Lynn. You don't know who she's in bed with. She could be in bed with the Russians, the Chinese. She could be cheating in this vote, so who knows. I'm the obvious choice here. Kian, thoughts on how you're going to lose this competition?
Well, I think that my history speaks for itself. I'm not the silver tongue like you are, Andrew, but I think if you enjoyed Greta Inc., I think if you enjoyed all of the hard work we did exposing Justin Trudeau, especially when we went to his front door at Rideau Hall and I was thrown out, if you enjoy stuff like that, if you use the news that we provide you, I think that it's clear that the obvious choice, the tremendous choice, is Key and Bexy. Just click that little button, type in your email, click submit, and then boom, it'll be great. It'll be great. We'll win. We're going to win this. I think we're going to win this unless there's massive voter fraud. And if there is, I will be taking it to the Supreme Court.
That's fair. And I will admit that you're a real journalist and I am just a guy who says stuff on the screen. But damn, do I do it well. Justin, let's go to a story that if Chinese people, Chinese officers embedded into my old military regiment isn't angering enough, Save Joshua. I believe it's savejoshua.com, Justin. Is that correct? Yes, it is. Here's something that will enrage you. This guy lives probably like 20 minutes from me. He's walking through a mall, shopping, with his mask on. He's complying like they all want us to. Decides to buy some food with his girlfriend, who's pregnant, by the way. They dared to sit down to eat. Security comes up to them and harasses them, tells them they need to leave. He laughs another guy, apparently by giving way more attitude to the security guard. They don't kick him out, but they say, you guys got to get out because you're removing your mask slightly to eat, I guess. So they think it's silly, but they're like, all right, we're going to start walking towards the exit. So it starts off with just one security guard, I believe, and then one comes in front of them, and then it turns out to be three of them escorting them out, walking. And this guy, Joshua, decides to start taking a selfie video, and he's making fun of them, and it's pretty funny. Calling them the Three Stooges, it turns out, really triggers the security guard to the point where it looks like he pushes him from behind. At that point, he turns around and says, "What are you doing?" And then the three security guards tackle him, and I think that's a good place for us to play the video, Justin.
I squirted out.
Don't put your hands on me, bro. Don't put your hands on me. Don't put your hands on me. Don't put your hands on me. Let's go. You're under arrest for trespass.
I didn't throw a punch. I didn't swing back. I didn't kick. You know, one man's pulling me this way, one guy's pulling me this way, one guy has me by the waist, one guy has me by the arms, you know, and I basically just fell over and they fell on top of me, and at one point I felt like I was fighting for my life. There was 4 security guards on top of me in blue uniforms, 2 in yellow, and then the police came in. Thank God I had some, you know, I wasn't knocked out when I hit the ground, you know, because at one point I really felt like I was fighting for my life.
Folks, welcome to our latest campaign in our never-ending fight for justice in a world gone increasingly mad thanks to the Wuhan virus. Indeed, we have just launched a new website portal, helpjoshua.com. That's helpjoshua.com. And if you can help us out, we would greatly appreciate your assistance. Joshua, by the way, is Joshua Walker of Pickering, Ontario, and a member of the Canadian Armed Forces Queen's Own Rifles. Earlier this month, Joshua visited Upper Canada Mall in Newmarket with his pregnant girlfriend, Samantha Lynn Thompson. The couple planned to do some Christmas shopping, but what unfolded was downright surreal as Joshua was roughed up and tackled by several of the mall's security guards. And then, to add insult to injury, he was eventually criminally charged. It is a staggering story, a bizarre story, a story that simply does not make any sense. And just wait till you hear the nitty-gritty details. David Menzies for Rebel News here in Pickering, Ontario. And folks, I am with Joshua Walker and his girlfriend, Samantha Johnson. And the reason I'm with the couple is that, well, you know, when you go to a shopping mall, as this couple did last week, what do you expect to do? Well, as the name would imply, do a little shopping, maybe grab a snack, go to a movie. You sure don't expect to get tackled by a half dozen mall security guards apparently for no reason. And Joshua, that is exactly what happened to you last week in Newmarket, Ontario. You went to the Upper Canada Mall, I believe. And, well, tell us a story. I believe it all starts to unravel in the food court, correct?
Yes, that's correct. We came in the mall to do a little Christmas shopping. We were wearing our mask when we came in. Fast forward to the food court. We were hungry. My girlfriend's pregnant, so we were all hungry. And we bought some food at the food court, and there was nothing that she wanted, so I bought some sushi and some teriyaki, and she's allergic to sushi, so she goes, "You eat your sushi." She made a joke, like, "Get away from me." So she went to shop, and I sat down. I just kind of blended in around the food court area where other people were already eating and sitting. Actually, in fact, a gentleman in a wheelchair wheeled up shortly after I sat down, about 6 feet from me, and he was eating his food as well. Security guard came over and said, "You can't eat here."
And he was directing the comments at you, not the other people.
Right towards me. Okay. And I honestly, I chuckled just under my mask, or under my breath, I chuckled. And, shortly after, you came out, Sam. She came out of wherever she was. And it was really funny to us because, honestly, stereotypically, you'd think, the black man would be giving more attitude. But the reason I'm saying it was funny is because the guy in the wheelchair, the Caucasian gentleman, a little bit lighter complexion, was actually giving the security attitude. And so the security guard shifted his attention from me and started talking to him. And then he was saying, "You can't eat here." And the guy in the wheelchair said, "Well, if we can't eat here, then tell us why. Then they should stop selling food in the food court."
Yeah. What are you supposed to do? Stand and eat it, I guess. And I suppose that was the rule, that there was no sitting down, I guess. It was for takeout only. But Joshua, you alluded to something I think is very important. Do you think your skin color had something to do with this? Do you think there was some sort of a racial targeting of you? Because you mentioned there were other people in the food court, and I presume you were the only black gentleman there?
I don't know, to be honest with you, if I was the only black gentleman there. But I do know that there were other people eating, and there was another Caucasian gentleman that I believe wasn't asked to leave leave the mall. He in fact left his garbage, and Sam said I picked up my garbage and threw it out, and we were complying with their request to leave. We packed up our food, I took my soda, and we were leaving. So regardless of I felt targeted, but I was kind of a little bit funny to us that the guy in the wheelchair was giving them attitude, and we just said, "Okay, we're out of here." Sam took a bite of the food, and we put our masks on, and then we're leaving.
And Samantha was.
See, Keen, I relate to this guy a lot in the sense that security guards say this stuff to me. I'd probably laugh too. I'd probably make fun of them too. And they seem to have this attitude now where they get to decide human rights. We saw this last week or earlier this week with the woman who has PTSD being thrown out of a mall because she can't wear her mask, and they're manhandling her. These security guards are now taking it upon themselves to decide who gets human rights. And imagine being tackled by 3 or 4 guys who aren't cops, who are saying they're putting you under citizen's arrest. Keen is getting told as we speak to put on his mask by airport security, it looks like.
Yeah. This guy keeps walking around. I'm in the lounge right now, getting ready to board a plane, and this is the only place where I had my own space to do this live stream before I had to board a plane. And I'm in, I don't know if Justin can show the photo that I just sent him of the room that I'm in. It's like this sealed room. There's a wall, the floor to ceiling door, and I'm the only one in here. And airport staff just come in here, knock on the door, open it, and say, "Put on your mask."
Oh my God.
Excuse me? Not only do I think I'm the only one in the lounge, I'm the only one in this very sealed container, and they want me to wear a mask.
Are they walking around on bathroom stalls making people put on their mask too? That's the size of it. That's insane. That's truly insane. Keen fighting the battles that we all want to fight right now. Do you have thoughts on that video? It's pretty enraging to me that guys who are not cops think they get to tackle people who are already on their way out.
Yeah, I watched that video, and when I saw it, I thought that there must be something, there must have been something else. But after seeing all the evidence, those rent-a-cops just acted wildly inappropriate. They were complying with the Trespass Act. They were leaving. They were laughing, but it's not illegal to laugh. You're in a mall. If you're told to leave, you can do whatever you want as long as you're leaving. And they were complying. And then those rent-a-cops just overstepped their bounds and violated, this man's like personal, right to your own bodily autonomy. They just threw him on the ground and decided that was their right because they're employed by some mall that said they needed to wear a mask and they didn't 5 minutes ago, so they had a right to throw this man on the ground, tackle him with 4 people, and humiliate him. I thought, like, what is the world coming to if that's something that's acceptable?
Yeah, and the Upper Canada Mall is where it is, if anyone's curious. Really spitting on our history. Justin, you want to bring up the website so we don't get any confusion? I said the wrong website. It's Help Joshua. So we're crowdfunding his legal fees, and obviously something needs to be done about this because nobody else, Kian, wants to stand up for human rights anymore. Costco doesn't want to abide by exemptions. Gyms don't want to abide by exemptions. Airports apparently don't want to abide by exemptions. So nobody else is going to do it. The conservative government's not going to say anything. They're going to field their easy questions and run away from the difficult ones. So somebody has to do something, and I'm proud to say that it's us. I'm proud to say that we're fighting fines. I'm proud to say that we're helping Joshua Walker. Joshua, if you're watching, feel free to reach out to me. I don't live too far from you. I'll come give you guys a Christmas present. And yeah, he's also a... Justin, we got a Slack on screen here. Yeah, he's also a corporal in the reserve, so you're also tackling a guy who wants to help serve his country. So it's got a lot of problems there, Kian, and I'm glad that we're helping this guy out. Pink Phoenix Nails has given us $1.50 with no message, so thank you for that. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they emailed us and said that they're going to be opening. Kian, I'm impressed by how many Alberta places have emailed us saying that they're going to open. It's a lot of nail salons, it's a lot of massage parlors, haircutters, hairdressers, tattoo artists. So all the people who have been completely shut down are willing to open back up, it seems like.
Yeah, it's really weird here in Alberta because I was just actually interviewing a lady who's opening up her salon in Canmore, and she shares her like office space with an acupuncturist. So she has an acupuncturist in one room. They share a lobby, and then in the other room there's a massage studio and a nails/salon thing. The acupuncturist is allowed to stay open. So that room is allowed to be used. But the rest of the building, the rest of that space isn't allowed to be used. You're not allowed to get any services done there, but you're allowed to get acupuncture. Now, I get it that people, they use acupuncture and they think it's essential, but how is that more essential than a massage, like physiotherapy or anything like that? It doesn't make any sense to me. The rules are very strange. So these people, they're all saying, yeah, these rules don't make sense. They're not coherent. There's no timeline. It seems rushed. And on top of that, it's on the busiest time of year. Like this is when the business that they get pre-Christmas tides them through January, February, and March. It's a ton of business that they're missing out right now because Jason Kenney decided right now, right before Christmas, is the time to lock down. And so there's just so much that they see as morally wrong with this rule. They see so much that's wrong. It's just nonsensical in some cases. So they say, fine, I'm going to open my doors and see what happens. And there's a ton of Albertans that are doing it. Now, it's partly because of that, but also I think because Albertans are just, they're different than the rest of Canada. They value their freedom and their liberty a little bit more, I think, than the majority of people in Upper Canada and Lower Canada. They don't stand for government tyranny, and that's why they elected Jason Kenney in the first place, actually. So that's why it's so sad, I think, to a lot of Albertans to see this happening.
Now, you mentioned being different. I don't think there's anyone different than Theresa Tam. Now, I'm not sure if you've seen this, and if you haven't, turn up your cringe dials. Your cringe defense systems need to be activated. Have you seen Theresa Tam speaking to fake Santa Claus? Because the real Santa Claus wouldn't say this, Kian.
Santa, hello. Thank you so much for taking the time to see me during your busy season. Santa? Santa? You're on mute.
Oh, ginger snaps, this new technology. Ho, ho, ho! Well, hello there, Dr. Tam. You've grown a wee bit since I last checked in. I hear you're extra busy these days, too, but I hope you still have time to play with all that Lego that I brought you. Ho, 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 ho.
Well, of course, still got the Lego. Just less time to build. I actually have something for you today.
Oh, what's that?
I would like to officially declare you an essential worker in Canada and clear you to work on Christmas Eve.
I am so glad to hear that, Teresa. Ho, ho. And I have a message for all the kids in Canada, too. Ho, 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 ho. I know some of you are worried about me, but I am well. In fact, I'm feeling great. Mrs. Claus and I have been self-isolating. In fact, we've been doing it for years. Many, many, many years. Ho, 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 ho. But even with my Christmas magic, which keeps me strong and healthy, I am always careful when I visit all my little friends. I have custom-made masks designed by the elves that fit my beard. And of course, I always clean my hands well. Ho, 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 ho. I will certainly be visiting you all on Christmas Eve. Ho, 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 ho.
Wonderful. It's been a very tough year for kids, but they all have been doing their best to keep up with staying safe, washing their hands, wearing their masks, and keeping a safe distance.
Dr. Tam, between you and me, the good list is a long one this year.
It's great to hear, Santa. All the best to you and Mrs. Claus. I wish you and your elves, as well as all of the people of Canada, a very happy holiday season.
That's truly stupid in so many ways, Kean, that I had to write it down. First of all, happy holidays. You're already talking about Christmas with Santa. You look disgusted by this. Self-isolating. She mentioned elves even. They live with elves, Kean. That doesn't make any sense. Santa doesn't answer to governments, obviously. He's international. He flies under the radar, so he doesn't need their permission. He can't be tracked. And I feel like that was probably a voiceover, or he's just terrible at reading a script. Those are my thoughts, my key breakdown points of that, Kean. Could it be any more cringe?
Yeah, I don't know if it could have been more cringe than that. That's the first time I've watched the full thing because I only got through like the first quarter of it last time. I find it strange that they say Happy Holidays even though they're talking about Santa Claus. Like last time I checked, Santa Claus doesn't, cover any other holidays outside of Christmas. Dr. Tam, making this a little bit about her. Like she's a bit of a star, I think, and I think like it's gotten to her head. Her Twitter numbers have done really well because Justin Trudeau has been retweeting her pretty much every day. So she's, she has a large following and it's gone to her head now. She thinks she's a movie star, and it was all about her. Frankly, I don't think I don't understand how anyone could think that was appropriate to do. I mean, like you're using childhood imagery, things that, children really care about, like Santa Claus, and using it to brainwash them into thinking that you need to wear a mask that is specially fitted to beards. Actually, it got me thinking, it got me wondering, I'm honestly surprised that the government hasn't forced people to shave their beards. They've been so adamant that you wear masks, but at the start of the mask thing, when they realized, when Dr. Tam, because remember, she's the OG anti-masker. She said that masks don't work. When she started saying that masks do work, she said, but they won't work if you have a beard. They won't work if you have a mustache. I'm really surprised that she didn't force Canadians to shave.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead on record and say that children don't need to wear masks, and to tell them, especially children who are young enough that they care what Santa says, they shouldn't be wearing a mask. If you're under 10 years old, your risk is virtually nothing unless you've got some terrible case of pneumonia or something else, obviously a comorbidity. Children are not dying from it, at least in Canada. I tried to put on this hat. It's too small. I don't know whose head is fitting in this, but this is as wide as it goes. It's not fitting on my head without strangulating me. And strangulating is now a word, Kean. So maybe you can put on a hat, maybe in your forced little coffin you're in there.
Well, we should probably get to the super chats. I'm going to open them up and read them. Although, Justin could also just open the Slack channel and put it on the screen for everyone.
That's another option too.
Okay, so
He's threatening to end the stream on us, like a parent saying, "We'll turn around right now if you don't behave, Kian."
So Viking Insane says PM Castro is using his dad's leader user manual. Yeah, it's tough to say which one is worse. I want to say Justin Trudeau, but Pierre Elliott Trudeau was pretty bad, and I think we forget about that sometimes. Viking also says acupuncture is allowed because it is Chinese. I'm not sure if that's the reason. I mean, I think that it's because the actual reason it's not allowed in Alberta is because it has a governing body to it, was I think what the regulation specifically said. So like lawyers are allowed to continue operating, doctors, because they all have governing bodies, doctors obviously for other reasons too, but acupuncturists also have like an overarching structure. I think that's the reason. Dr. Phi says, last I heard, our deficit was at 343.2 billion and national debt was 1.2 trillion, but that was months ago. Do you know what it is now? Well, we could throw up the Canadian Taxpayers Federation debt clock. That's the tool I use to tell what the debt is at any given moment. If Justin can throw that up, then that would be great, and I'll keep reading these super chats. Santa declared essential, according to Viking, unlike most Canadians. Yeah, most Canadians back in March, I think, were declared not essential. But at the end of the day, every business is essential. Every Canadian is essential. And I'm going to have to throw my mask on because an angry WestJet employee is pointing at me.
Oh, they're giving you the point. If you want to get into an argument with them live on air here, I'd support that. I think the viewers would as well.
I have to take this flight, and if I don't, I'll be in trouble.
Oh, right. So apparently we've missed super chats when you were being yelled at, and there's a bit more. I'm not sure what he's referring to.
Yeah.
Justin, you say this, but it's not on the screen, so that's the problem there. So the next thing we're going to move on to, if we can absolve ourselves from the pain that we just endured from Theresa Tam, we are looking back at some of our highlights from the year past. I can't believe 2020 is almost over, and we're going into 2021. So Justin said, "Hey Andrew, what's one of your favorite videos you did earlier this year?" And I don't know what your favorite of mine is, Kian, considering you watch all my videos front to back, donate afterwards, of course. I know you're an avid fan of mine. I didn't go with City Hall. I didn't go with the gun shooters where the guy says that bullets can travel 2 or 3 city blocks, which is a very weird measurement. 44 holds 44 bullets. That's too easy. I went with the nerds at the eco protest in downtown Toronto trying to tell me to put on a face shield, quite like what you're going through right now, where I'm in an area, I'm outside, and there's no reason for me to wear a mask or a shield. Not that a face shield would actually do anything. It doesn't. It's not magic. So Justin, if we want to cue that, this is my pick for my favorite video of mine. A lot of me here for 2020.
Climate emergency services.
Phase out gas plants, Ontario Climate Action. Sir, can you tell me more about your sign?
Yeah, we're working to phase out Ontario's gas plants in order to allow Doug Ford to meet his 2030 climate target.
Okay, very cool. And what's the main, is that your main purpose here? Are you part of a larger message here? Tell me any other reasons why you're here today.
Well, to stop dangerous climate change.
Okay, and is there any specific policy we want to get put in place to help further this goal? Like we can't put a thing that says stop all gas plants. How long are you looking to do that of a time over? What do we do with these people's jobs? Stuff like that.
Well, we want Premier Ford to shut down all the gas plants by 2030.
And what do we do with all the people's jobs that we've lost?
Well, very few people work in the gas plants, actually. And they're skilled people, and they'll be able to find jobs elsewhere.
That's it? Just tough luck?
Okay, how are you going to heat your homes? It's a stupid question. Okay? No, it's a stupid question. How are you going to heat your homes? And the thing is that you got to heat your homes. Now, I agree climate change is real, okay? I agree with that, okay? It's happening. And the thing is that, but the problem is how do you get rid of it? It's like, this stuff is made from it.
Do we have any ideas of what kind of legislation or anything that we could do, any more limitations?
Well, yeah. You could, most of it's coming from the upper corporations. And right now they have a very loose grip. So I think regulation should be on them rather than on everyday people. Because you're not going to solve climate change with recycling or riding a bike or that. It's more of a collective issue, collective action.
What about countries that are much more bigger polluters than us, like India or China or a lot of African nations where they're just getting more industrialized and making a lot of money through that? Do we need to try to limit them as well and their emissions, or are we just focused on here? What do you think about that?
I think we should start in our own country first before, trying to enforce things on other people.
Seniors for Climate Action Now. Sir, can you tell us more about your sign?
Well, we're seniors who support youth on this very important issue of fighting climate change. And we're sending a message that this is not, we congratulate them and we're with them.
Like I'm just walking by, okay? And it says seniors for climate change or whatnot. I hardly see any seniors here.
So I think he's right. I think you should wear a mask.
But you didn't have a problem with it before he said that. They didn't have a problem before I started the interview.
Your interviews are over.
My interviews are over, she says. Very fascist of you.
Is it?
Isn't it? To tell me that I can't conduct freedom of speech activity?
Yeah, sometimes activists are very like aggressive, That's why they're kind of a meme sometimes, right? Either that's, climate change people, the feminists and whatever, right? So I think if you're going for a cause, you have to be putting a good image. You have a good point on that, right? So fair enough if you have, some sort of respiratory issue and you can't wear a mask. I don't have anything like that, and I still can't halfway breathe with this thing, right? So of course you don't want to kill people, but it's a fine line, right? But people get triggered, they get emotional, and they flip out. So what can you do?
Notice signs.
I think that's a really good point that you made in that video about should we be focusing on other countries, and should we, try and get India and China to reduce their emissions? And this is something that Greta Thunberg talks about all the time. Greta's thesis is that there's a carbon budget. There's a set amount of carbon dioxide that humans, as a global population, can emit. And if you emit more than that budget, then there will be a cascade of effects, of positive feedback loops that cause unprecedented warming, rising sea levels, change in climate, biodiversity collapse, all these things. She says that we need to, as developed nations, need to dramatically reduce our emissions so that China and India and Bangladesh and all those other Southeast Asian nations, they can still use some of the leftover carbon budget so that they can industrialize themselves. So that was about 2 years ago that Greta came out with this thesis. And she said we have about 5 or 6 or 7, maybe 7 years to go. So the question is, well, when we get to the end of those 7 years, we're into year 5 and 6, and we're coming up to the end of the carbon budget, and there's not even enough carbon in that budget of Greta's for India and China to industrialize, and all those other smaller nations, especially in Africa. There's not enough in that budget for them to industrialize. Well, then will you forcibly tell them that they can't industrialize anymore? Is the end game so dramatic and violent and terrible, your perceived climate change? Will it destroy the world so badly that you're willing to let them industrialize once we get to the end of that budget? And my gut instinct is that once we get to year 7, when the world was supposed to have ended or start, rapidly collapsing, they're going to say, maybe there's a little bit more room for these, for Africa to still use gas cars, for China to still use coal, and India to still use coal. There'll still be a little bit more room in the budget for them, but the developed world, you're too little, too late. Now you've done it. Congratulations.
See, the problem that you can see in videos like this and that others have done is these people have all these complaints and no solutions. It turns out that guy didn't know what he was talking about. There are lots of people working in these gas plants. We didn't even get to the old man who said that landlords need to be decapitated, which really didn't have anything to do with the protest. And all these people that didn't have answers, those young girls, God bless them, not knowing really anything. But even their solutions that were not presented at this protest, but are presented elsewhere, don't work. You hear stuff like, well, we're going to run out of fossil fuel. Well, they've been saying that for 50 years. And America is now energy independent and is a net producer of what you call fossil fuels. Also isn't a real thing, taking them from fossils. That turned out to not be true as well. So oil and gas, America, people never thought they'd going to be exporting more than they're using. That's happening now. Germany, actually, and you can watch a lot of the stuff Jordan Peterson actually talks about this, of all people, because people always want him to side with Greta as well. Germany was like, let's shut off fossil fuels for a while. We can go by wind and solar and all this stuff, but the problem is at the end of the day, you can't really store a lot of that energy. It's extremely expensive, and people don't know that there's solar waste from storing solar energy, which is a problem. So at the end of the day, when the sun goes down, Germany ended up turning on their coal-fired plants, which obviously is what the climate activists are extremely against, because they didn't have any other place to go for energy, and it drove energy costs way up. And then when you get stuff like in France, when they vote in Emmanuel Macron, they jack up the energy prices, so everyday individuals, well, they say, well, what else did you want us to do besides charge people a ton of money for using this energy? And it's just like those young girls said, that we got to be, it's more of a collective. You can't be doing that. You can't be blaming other countries, which is more to your point. But the stuff that they actually have ideas doesn't actually work. And my last point about that, which is when you mentioned the 7 years or whatever Greta and co have claimed, put your mask on, Key, and comply.
I'm worried that I'm going to get thrown out and not be able to make my flight. I actually do have to go catch my flight here in about, 8 minutes. Okay, so we're good to end the stream, I think.
So the reason why they give these such short-sighted numbers is because when you look at these projection graphs, the further and further you go, the wider the error for margin becomes, because you can't see into the future with all these data. So when they're predicting 6, 7, or 10 years, that's because they know if they start saying stuff 20 years from now, is their predictions, they're going to look even more ridiculous than they already do. So these numbers don't stack up. Of course people don't want pollution. Of course people want clean air. But it's really money behind this, isn't it, Kian? Greta's not some sort of super genius just because she speaks English. They teach English as a second language in Sweden. She's not some genius. She has activist parents that trot her around for sums of money to speak at conferences. Do they not?
She is, yeah, you're right. She's a radical extremist, pro-wealth redistribution, green, crazy loser. I mean, this is all part of wealth redistribution. That's all this is. It's not about the climate. If you care, there's nobody that cares more about the climate than conservatives. There's nobody that cares more about the ecosystems that farmers rely on, that hunters rely on, than conservatives. It's in the root of the word: conservation. Conservatives love the environment. Radical extremist green folks like Greta only care about the money. They only care about using this perceived threat and using it as a scapegoat to take your money, my money, and everyone who has done well in this world, and give it to several people, to their lobby organizations, to redistribute that wealth among your own domestic nation, to redistribute it among, and then finally, and probably the worst, is to redistribute that to developing nations through foreign aid, saying that, we need to actually give them money so that they can industrialize faster. Just like what I was saying earlier, Greta only cares about, she wants these nations to industrialize, and she doesn't want to threaten that with her, thesis that there's only a certain amount of carbon that we can use. So she'll protect those nations at all costs, from China, India, Bangladesh to Africa. And in doing so, she will say, yeah, you need to actually have a carbon tax. All of the, a huge chunk of the taxes that your country raises, not only do you have to put that towards redeveloping your own infrastructure in a way that suits me and suits the people who are in my green team, you also need to take your taxes and send them over to China, to India, Bangladesh, Africa, South Africa, Nigeria, Egypt, wherever it is, so that they can, eventually get off fossil fuels. And that burden is on you, the first world Westerner.
I mean, they try it every once in a while. I mean, Al Gore is a famous example of it. And maybe some of our viewers remember that in the 90s, David Suzuki, bless his soul, trotted out his own daughter in the very same fashion. She was less angry and less mean than Greta, because it was the 90s. And that's my reason for it. But same thing, got up in front of the UN and all these people without saying, how dare you, basically saying, please think of the children. But we do have to get to super chats before Justin kills us.
I'll run through these super chats, Andrew, and then I got to go run and catch my plane.
Go ahead, Kian.
So Kane and Mark, my favorite rebel actually, says he voted for Kian. Kian and Justin, the producer,
he said Keenan actually, and there's a guitar that went by the screen. What happened there?
It's clear that he meant Kian. And many people make that mistake because Apple, big tech, is against.
I want to know why a guitar went across the screen, Kian. Oh, so every time Justin gets mentioned, a guitar goes across the screen? That's apparently a thing.
Okay. PM Pink Phoenix Nails just didn't send a message, but sent a super chat. We appreciate that. Terse Pollard, I don't know. Therese. Wow, I just turned sound to last vid. What was that? I don't know what the last vid was. It was something that Andrew did. Don't even worry about it. It was just something that Andrew did.
Unbelievable.
Dr. Fifi says, I have to wonder how people who took the CERB are going to be affected when tax season comes around. Yeah, I'm very curious to know what's going to happen. And I think Justin Trudeau is going to wring a lot of people's necks who are above a certain income level who took CERB, even though he sort of made it clear that it was available to whoever wanted it. Viking Insane again says climate change alarmism is a facade to shift production from the west to the east. This is why China and India can increase production until 2030. Viking, you're absolutely correct. That's exactly what I was trying to say. You said it much better than I. Justin Terry, oh no, that's not Justin. Justin, you should send super chats so that I can talk about you. Third wave feminist, there's no name on this. Third wave feminist, climate change activist, etc. These people started their own religions. Yeah, no, it's true. It is a modern day religion. It's a cult, actually. Randy Smith says, I'd give another 5 if you never put that cringy thing on again. DL? Oh, that's the mask. I need to get on a plane. I can't get thrown out. That's the only reason. Otherwise, I would not be wearing it, which is why I'm not wearing it right now. Anyways, I think that was the last super chat, unless Justin had anything else. I'm going to have to sign off because I do have to go run to my gate. Okay. Thank you, Andrew, for hosting this alongside me. I appreciate you helping me along here and reminding everyone to go to viewerschoiceaward.ca and awards, plural, .ca, which is strange because it's only going to one person, and that's going to be me, as long as everyone makes sure that they go to viewerschoiceawards.ca and cast a vote. Last I heard, according to our boss, he says that it's very tight. So your vote is never more important than it would be right now. Because actually, I think it's going to close here in maybe around
4 hours.
When is it? Very shortly. You don't have much time. You have to do it right now. Go to Viewers Choice Awards.ca, and it will help me out a lot because I have to make sure that I'm at least above Andrew.
Tough words from a tough guy putting his mask on at the airport. Be gone, Kian. We thank you. Your hair is looking good, though. I'll give you that.
Thank you very much.
So before we go here, Justin, we've got another episode of Andrew Says coming this Saturday. Very happy to, to announce that it is Michaela Peterson, daughter of Jordan Peterson, of course. We've got a preview for that, and we can go right into the end for that. We can go off the air, Justin, if we'd like. So shout outs to Justin, Kian, Nicole, Lincoln in the back, Efron, and Mike who put together this promo. Thanks a lot. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your super chats. Go to viewerschoice.ca to cast your votes, and go to Rebel News Store, viewerschoiceawards.ca to cast your vote. Apparently we can't get that straight around here. Me and Keen are going to have a powwow about that later, I guess. Really think about the spelling on that. And, of course, Rebel News Store with promo code Andrew10. Here's a preview of my interview with Michaela Peterson, to sit down here in the studio, and that is airing this Saturday. Have a great day, you guys.
You know, I'm Jordan Peterson's daughter, which already puts me into a controversial spot, whether or not I like it. And then I had this diet I'm on, which is just eating meat. So that forced me into a controversial spot. Not that I wanted to be in one, so I figured I might as well have conversations with people that maybe other people aren't as willing to have. You guys obviously are.